So Ashish and Tina, I hand over to you. All yours. I think you have a slide, right?
I'm going to start at such.
So we had a great day, and I think it was a fitting continuation of what we did in Pune, discussing, I think Praveen set the context very correctly by stating the mission, which is right now at the loggerheads with market, society and government. And then of course Poonamji talked about the initiatives that have happened in Pune on especially the Maji Vasundhara initiative, Namami Chandrabhaga and Akash, right? These are the three major initiatives you talked about, and under which you have a range of activities happening, such as use of EVs, waste management, solid waste, liquid waste, etc. And then Ankush also talked about the smart grid pilot that we have set up in a village near IIT Kanpur, which of course has got buy-in in the village, but I have myself felt one example of neighboring villages not being very happy with that because they don't have that. And although Ankush didn't mention that, there have been incidents of stone pelting on the solar installations. So I think there is a very strong social issue there, which has to be overcome, because unless neighbors also see that coming to their own villages, they're not very happy with that. Sorry?
A different kind of aspiration.
Different kind of aspiration, because when somebody is, it's like frog in the well kind of thing. So, and there are different issues because this project was funded by the government. But government has not funded the other projects in other villages, so this is an issue.
Aish, any idea how are they going to maintain that project? Because
Yeah, that's a challenge. That's a challenge, because how do you maintain the bio plant? How do you maintain solar plant? Because solar plant right now, I know that few panels were damaged, which these guys replaced. But when they get damaged later on, then who will replace them? Similarly, the issues with batteries, like batteries also fail. Right now, they have a cooling system for the batteries because it gets really hot in that unit in summer. So they have a casing in which there is an air conditioning system for the batteries. Which sounds sort of paradoxical, but there is a air conditioning system for the batteries, otherwise batteries will fail. And so there are issues which will, I think in the morning there was a discussion on return on investment and whether there is a business model. So there are serious issues in those situations. Mr. Porwal also talked about power energy transition in MP and the work that he has done, especially with respect to costing and things like that. Pradeep talked about just transition, which is a very important subject in the context of India, especially when we want to transition from coal-based electricity to non-fossil fuel-based electricity, and it's not a trivial task by any means. And Bijoy very nicely talked about the trade-offs which happen because of societal differences, which are through developmental aspirations as well as environmental degradation. So how do you sort of balance that, which is a problem? And then Ajay gave a nice presentation on what do we need to do to preserve our natural resources so that they are managed in a sustainable manner. And he talked about this idea of transition from linear to circular. I think I like that word. Linear to circular approach is something that we need to dwell upon. And I think last session was mainly focused on the implementation, where we heard from Mr. Karkare about implementations that he has done in his setup, particularly focusing on scope 1 and scope 2 reductions. And Swapnil then talked about the initiatives at Infosys which are really commendable, and we are hoping to work with Infosys to learn more and implement some at IIT Kanpur. Deepika and Spree are the two bodies, two persons working together to help us deal with this assessment issue and suggest us some nice recommendation guidance. And then I think in the end, Gurudas's takeaways were really important. Really, I think this is what we have also been struggling with. I think our flaw has been to be really granular about the data, and sometimes you get so much stuck with the data that you lose the bigger picture. I think that was a good lesson that you have told us. We'll not get stuck with the data. We can get it, fine. If we can't get it, then we have to move on with the process. So with this, I'll now hand over to Praveen to say his views. And next meeting is in Gandhinagar. Should we announce? Without consulting IIT Gandhinagar, we can say that it's in Gandhinagar.
So I think since last evening, I've been sort of taking some notes of what can be some concrete action items that we can all work on. And some of them, I don't know how practical those ideas are, but nonetheless, I will toss them here. I think I was really impressed by Mr. Karkare's presentation that, the proof is in the pudding, that there is a building which you can go, touch, feel, and it is sustainable and it is. So I'm wondering, there's so much construction going on IITK campus. Can we create one green building? And I know politically it's not easy because you have a separate department, separate funding agencies, but I think IITK is a microcosm of the bigger country. So if we can't do it here, how do we expect to do it outside? So it'll be really, I think we have a breakfast meeting with the director. So let's I think it'll be really good to have one building on campus which doesn't have air conditioning.
Absolutely.
And in the 40-degree temperature of Kanpur, if you can demonstrate that you can live without air conditioning, and it'll be fantastic. So one food for thought. The second, so if you recall in the morning session, I had sort of made one matrix to list down, let me jump. And this is also the set of challenges that Ajay referred to in his presentation. So there are three concrete pilots which are unfolding. IITK net neutral, net zero, Pune metro net zero, and 14 feet, right? So looking at challenges, let's see which challenge is being addressed in which pilot. So don't go by the marking that I've done. I mean, each box is a placeholder. What will be really nice if we can fill up this table with student projects. I think ultimately we have to engage bachelor's, master's student and PhD students and align, define their projects to address each one of these matrix items. So I don't think we have time to do that right now, but that's an action item that maybe we should have a meeting and think of what are concrete projects we can think of. And it will be fantastic if some of the students can work with Gurudas in Pune on the metro project. Likewise, some students from Pune can potentially come, and likewise some cross,
That
will be really fantastic. And we can obviously throw in a trek at 14 trees as a bonus to all the students who are working on sustainability. But so this is one concrete item I can kind of think of. Now, obviously, the next meeting. And I think as we discussed yesterday evening, without having the stakeholder from IIT Gandhinagar, we will announce that we will have our next meeting on IIT Gandhinagar campus, and we will invite both IIM Ahmedabad and NID into this room. So we will bring in that angle of management as well as the creativity into the mix. Because I think coming up with narratives, simplifying our message, reaching out to the masses is an extremely important part of it. And we just don't have those skills in this room. So let's be honest about it and bring the right people for discussion. One more thing which had come up during our yesterday night discussion is potentially a kind of an elective course which sensitizes students about whole natural resource management, sustainability, ecological angle, the history of how the development has brought about some of the instruction that we talk about. And I think you already have elements of that, but perhaps a course which can be taught by a bunch of visiting scholars, so that it's not a load on one person to be here, but rather a bunch of lectures together create that. So I think that idea also was tossed earlier. Maybe it's time to put it into some concrete shape and see if we
We can
can.
do one thing. We have, I think some of us have created one such course like that. I'll create the table of contents among all of you. Please give your thoughts on that, and we can take it up.
Further.
Actually, one more course that we were thinking was on circular aspects, right? Because this whole concept of circularity in various contexts, right? So while we are talking about going from linear to circular, like not everybody understands how to implement those concepts or how to kind of even judge those concepts into their own context. Like context for an industry could be different from a context to a corporate, to a context for an institute, to a context to a manufacturing facility. This context could be very, very different. So maybe a couple of courses, like not only one course, but maybe various courses on these lines could be worked out.
The next in my list was doing something to attract students into this conversation. And I think, as we also talked about, it linked with the placement. If people think that working on these projects is going to land them a great job at some of these great companies, so bringing those linkages, that so as we define these projects, we need to keep in mind who are the potential employers who are going to be interested in hiring those students. Because if there's one or two good shots, that will completely change the game. So maybe some of the high-end consulting houses, McKinsey's and Deloitte's of the world in the mix, because this area is very, very important to them.
So one good thing along this direction could be like, as we were talking yesterday, about having minors in some of these areas like climate solutions or sustainability, net zero, carbon neutrality. You can't have minor in everything, but probably an integrated minor can be designed. And that's, I think, could be a game changer in this direction.
And certainly for the next 20, 30 years, this area is going to be so critical that we need to be sort of creating a next generation of leaders. And I think nothing succeeds like success. So especially the student community is more attracted to when they see some big stories coming out or big successes coming out. So if company like Spree becomes a unicorn in the sustainability space, I think the force of attraction of that is so much more powerful than any lectures that we can give. So in the process of us working on the R&D problems, if we can spawn a set of new startups which sort of start dominating that space, that is the key to getting the right talent coming this way. And I think using our network of connections to making sure that we open up pathways for that will be really, really fantastic.
Just to add what you are saying, for any success, this is a general experience that a mass movement of the campaign and the involvement of all the stakeholders is essential. When we are planning something for the IDA campus, then all the stakeholders in the campus have to be involved in that. That's my observation. Over the experience, whether it was the Swachhata Abhiyan in the country, or the literacy mission, or the family planning mission, whatever has been done, the involvement of the masses or all the stakeholders. So that's what probably you're saying, not only students, probably everybody, for that matter.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the last point which I just picked up during the coffee break, I think the problem of waste management is very, very dear to my heart. And I think the problem of waste management, nobody has been able to tackle yet in India. You see, it's a mess everywhere. So Kanpur is, making a first step, and I think it should do everything possible to demonstrate that that problem can be solved. Yes.
Before you go to waste management, I just wanted to talk about this academic point that you raised.
Yes.
So we are talking about the higher education curriculum in our higher institutes and all. but I think this I see as a new area. It's like civil engineering, mechanical engineering area. I am seeing this as a new area. And like the academics program in our IIT systems, I think for implementation of this, there are two other things that is required. One is the skill development in the ground level, and another is the intermediate people who will have the training to implement this. Because we are right now talking about everything. So if I design a car, engineers are doing that. I have a diploma engineers who will be implementing this in the shop floor, and IT engineers will be doing a lot of other work. Those two components I have not seen in any in this discussion. And unless we start creating that curriculum of academics or skill development, like the first talk, Poonam said that they are giving some award. So in the same way, if they, in those program, if they create a skill development schools, let's say small school, and involve these people and give them some certificates, then we are able to create a local ground level people trained in this and more involved. And in academics component, I did not see this discussion in the entire discussion.
Yeah, I think creating that talent pool and skilling is you rightly pointed out is important. So I'll tell you what is, I think once the pilots start, these pilots are going to need workforce. So the workforce that works on those pilots automatically gets trained as a result of working on those projects. And as we scale up pilots to a bigger level, it will automatically create a need for a skilled workforce, which is going to help scale up all the efforts. So there are two approaches to skilling. Either you do training, or secondly is you create ambitious scale-up plans, and that pull or that the pressure from the market automatically creates the demand for that skill. So I think maybe some combination of that. And I think there are agencies like MPSCL which are already active to create that layer of talent that you're already talking about. It's not happening in IITs, but there are other institutes which could potentially partner with us in creation of these green jobs that Ajay referred to. But yeah, point well taken.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the neat one of the neat things here that I see sort of tied in with your idea on pilots and student projects is that they offer places where these pilots can be done in very different sectors. I mean, whether it's waste or water, what Madam was saying in the morning in terms of what the students can contribute to in all the three different areas that you mentioned. There's all kinds of opportunities to get students really fired up, because this is not low-tech stuff. This is fairly cool stuff. Like, look at what Mr. Karkare presented. I mean, it was like amazing stuff, and I know what Infosys has done in their buildings. I mean, this is very high-tech materials engineering, communications, electronics, I mean, controls. So to get students fired up and to allocate them to different real-life projects through the center would be just fascinating, I think, and would potentially result in the kinds of startups that you're looking at. Even at 14 Trees, we've been talking about hybridizing energy solutions. We've been talking about agrivoltaics, which is sort of the new big thing in voltaics, in photovoltaics. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here. So one of the things that I might suggest in order to sort of have an actionable point is sort of similar to what we are also trying to do in Ratnagiri district, for example, is to simply create a shared sort of a Google Doc kind of an environment where people who want to address a particular problem post the problem and identify a mentor for that problem. And then students who get interested in it go after that problem, and then they volunteer to work on it as a part of their thesis or their project or whatever be the scale at which they want to work at. And so far we found it to be quite exciting. We've got about 10 colleges and about 40 students who are already starting fieldwork pretty soon. So you may want to create that, because problem identification, problem definition itself, and identification of the mentor that goes along with that, who takes the responsibility for it, becomes an important part of the process. So that may be an easy, actionable thing to do.
Yeah, I think there's a good number of people who are experienced and who want to engage and want to mentor. So it's a matter of connecting those with the next generation of students. So, and certainly all of these activities want to grow in a very open source spirit. That everything is open, anybody can contribute, engage, and freely share. So I think that's all I had. If I have missed anything, anybody else want to add any other action point?
So not against challenges, but I'm seeing that in the matrix that we've created from a net zero perspective, we're tackling CO2, we're looking at the economic, social, and ecological aspects. But I don't see a governance thing. And governance would primarily be
Policy, mostly.
not really policy, but when I say governance, it means to say how do you essentially report out what you've achieved, right? What is the reduction in terms of their footprint? What is it? How have you achieved it? Are you looking at aspects? We've not touched greenwashing aspects of it, and I don't want to wade into that debate, but you can have something like governance and then use platforms like these to essentially report out all of the interventions, savings, and so on and so forth. And you give a technological dimension to the overall matrix.
Yeah, I think good point.
In fact, this platform can grow as a governance platform.
Yeah. In fact, I have some thoughts about the module, addition to module